Hi, welcome to the Bada Boom podcast. I'm Troy.
And I'm Chris.
And man, this past weekend, a lot of announcements were dropped, lots of bombshells were dropped, plenty of things to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, one thing to not look forward to is Henry Cavill playing Superman again. We know if you were waiting, if you were waiting on that, you were
keep waiting.
Super disappointed. But yeah, it was a great weekend. It felt good to have San Diego back. I've never been, but I was living vicariously through the people that were there. Mutual friend of ours who has been on the show, Vincent, was there, had the time of their life. They got to meet Norman Reedus, so it was cool to have that energy back, just because it felt like there was a big San Diego shaped hole in our hearts for the last couple of years. And some companies brought it. I think like what was crazy was from day one, like Thursday or Wednesday, whatever's previews night, you saw announcements coming out, trailers for certain things. And, obviously the hammer was dropped on Saturday when Marvel took the stage. And, there were a lot of rumors circulating that they will be holding a lot of stuff. And I'm sure there's still some announcements that they're holding for D23. But, I don't know how they could have done any less.
Yeah, I think at D23, they're mostly going to say, these were the shows we announced, at Comic-Con, or these are the shows we announced like last year. Secret Invasion and like Armor Wars and stuff. I think like at D23 they'll be like, hey, here's some previews, here's some things, like here's who's playing this character that we're gonna show you about D23. It may not just follow up in this phase of the MCU, but I was a little curious, like where is Shang-Chi gonna kind of fall into some of this stuff, because they kind of like, I feel like did a pretty good job painting and tying together things from phase 4 into phase 5. But I was like, man, I don't really see where Shang-Chi's going to fit in.
And Kevin Feige talked about this a little, he, in explaining why they announced, the biggest announcement of the day was that at the end of all of this in 2025, we will see two Avengers movies in the span of 6 months: Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. And what he was talking about was how previously, every phase was capped off by an Avengers movie, essentially. But with Disney Plus in the last 2 years, they basically fit like the span of like 3 phases into one in terms of content.
Yeah.
And so like, even though it seems like if you look at all those projects, 5 years ago, if Marvel announced all that, you're like, oh, we're looking 5 years down the line. In reality, it's only 2.5 years. And also a lot of that slate in phase 6 was empty. So there's still a lot of spots for, I'd imagine, sequels, shows that haven't been announced, hopefully the mutants.
That means 2 things.
Yeah.
One, people can join the MCU, I feel like a lot easier, a lot faster, because the content that they would be signed in for is going to get pushed out in a shorter amount of time. So it won't feel like, oh, wow, I'm signing on for like 10 years of movies, like how Chris Evans felt and whatnot. And you might say, maybe I was right. Maybe that optimism I had in the previous podcast maybe paid off, of like, hey, we're really going to flesh out all the announcements of how great this phase is because of how bad not how bad, but like, last phase maybe wasn't the best, but got a lot to look forward to now, my friend.
Yeah, but in the same in that same vein, when Kevin Feige was talking about it, the 2 Avengers movies, you can tell. I mean, and this is why he's such a great producer. They probably knew, like, hey, everyone feels this phase is pointless and going nowhere. So we have to let them know, like, hey, do not stop watching these things, or do not stop being invested in these things, because eventually it will pay off. Now, I don't think
it'll be a big payoff.
It'll be a big payoff.
It's a big payoff.
I mean, the reality is like only 2, like Loki and, and only Loki really has anything that really is going to pay off eventually. But, hopefully Quantumania, I heard the footage was great for that. Guardians 3, I think that's going to be a great personal story. And really the best of their presentation was really that Wakanda Forever trailer, which was really emotional. I've watched it 10, 20 times. I think that's going to be a big movie. And, I do not really care about its implications in the larger Marvel Universe, I think is just going to be a really great tribute to Chadwick and what
Agreed.
that story means to fans and also the people that made it. So, I don't really look at that and be like, oh, are they going to set up Doctor Doom? I don't care. That's all like really like secondary to me when it comes to that. But it gave us a lot. Also, we had a She-Hulk trailer. They improved the CGI for sure. It still
Thank
looks
goodness.
awkward, but for a show that's I think I've seen worse CGI on a superhero show. We've been watching The Flash for like 10 years. And also I think, and I've talked about this with some people. I think part of the reason, she doesn't look great is that you see the Hulk and Abomination in the same show and they look exactly like they do in the movies, like the movie quality. So it is a little jarring, but I did like
Yeah.
them. I thought it was a big improvement. I don't know with some people, but and also another big improvement to that is at the end of that trailer, we get another lawyer in the MCU appear in costume, Daredevil, which was amazing for me. We also get
And he's pulling up in the red and yellow.
yeah, that's an interesting thing. And they announced he's getting a show, an 18-episode show called Daredevil Born Again, even though they did that story already in the Netflix series. But I think the Born Again line is more of like, like Spider-Man Homecoming. It's basically a play on words like, hey, like,
Yeah.
they're back in the fold and the MCU proper. And that was cool. I'm excited to watch She-Hulk. I mean, not excited like, oh my God, I can't wait, but it'll be cool to see that, obviously there's some other characters they haven't shown that might appear. It'll be cool to see Jessica Jones show up. Just all the
dope.
yeah, and like what's gonna be cool is seeing Jennifer, sorry, show up in other things. Now that there's gonna be established law for superheroes, it would be really interesting to see her appear in other things, maybe the Fantastic Four in the background and stuff. So that was cool.
Hey, I mean, if you've been reading the new She-Hulk comic, it's only on issue 5 right now. But that's pretty much just like what she's doing the entire series. It's like, hey, I'm the lawyer to defend superheroes. And yeah, her CGI looks better. I do think they aren't trying to make her as muscular as the Abomination and Hulk. And that's kind of maybe like, give her muscles. She's ripped and stuff. She's not always going to be, pretty and just like a bigger version of herself. Like she's a Hulk, but we'll see what happens. The fact that you just mentioned Jessica Jones, I was like, oh crap, yeah, let's get Jessica Jones and all the Luke Cage, but we'll see what happens with time. This is not the official Marvel podcast, it's official DC podcast. So
But the thing is, there's nothing to talk about with the DC.
Well, we did get a new trailer for Captain Marvel. Or not Captain Marvel.
You mean Shazam?
Shazam. Hey, look, I grew up on Justice League Unlimited. It was Captain Marvel for the longest time. But we got a new trailer for Shazam, which I wasn't very hyped about. And like maybe my expectation or like my excitement was maybe like at a 3 or a 4. But after the trailer, it's not more like a 6 or a 7, because the first one was like, hey, this is maybe just going to be a fun movie. And now I'm like, okay, this one still looks like it's going to be a fun movie. Like it's still going to be something I'm going to enjoy to see in the theaters.
And to be fair to Shazam, the first movie, the trailers weren't always like amazing. When you sat down and watched the movie, that's when it really,
So it hit you.
Yeah, that's when it hit you. And part of the reason, that it isn't too exciting is that like what a Shazam sequel should have is Black Adam. But we're getting Black Adam with The Rock, which looks really exciting. The short trailer they showed was awesome. We got some cool shots of the Justice Society. Dr. Fate looks amazing. So there's some cool stuff with that, but a lot of people, and this is the problem with expectations and rumors. People were expecting like a big announcement around Superman and Henry Cavill, and then I think another part of the disappointment is that you see that panel, and then not immediately after, but a couple hours later, Marvel shows up, and despite them having a whole show in 2 months, which is D23, that is basically home field advantage. They don't have to compete with anyone. They managed to lay out a bunch of footage, a bunch of movies, all these things. And you're just like, wow, like I'm really gonna see Echo before there's even another Superman movie officially announced.
Hey,
So
I hope this is just like fuel on the fire for Discovery to be like, guys, we had the entire convention stolen from us. Like, people don't even talk about us. Like, we didn't have anything. We got to
bro,
come back strong next year and be like, let's go.
Dwayne Johnson got booed. He got booed because he was
Oh,
like, they asked him about Superman, like, hey, like if Black Adam, went up against Superman, he was like, well, it depends who's playing Superman. And like you've heard like there's audible boos in the crowd. Cause again, people are expecting that. And that's something he's teased for years. It's rough being a DC fan. It's rough. But despite that, in a couple days we have Super Pets. We have that to be excited about. In a couple more months, we have, get to finally see the Justice Society on screen, which is crazy because we've only seen them on the small screen. And then after that, we have Shazam,
yeah.
Aquaman not long after that. Part of it, could be one, the merger, and two, some of their bigger movies next year have some of the most toxic persons available to them in it, with Ezra, the way that's their biggest movie. I wouldn't have be surprised if Ezra wasn't, in the news all the time, them figuring out a way to cut up a trailer, bring out Michael Keaton, because all they needed was like really a minute, so it is. And the movie was supposed to come out this year. So I'm sure they have a lot of
Yeah.
footage that they could have put together, for the fans and stuff. But those marketing budgets probably shrunk when, when they got acquired. I'm sure Discovery's still looking over the books and being like, we're paying this person how much? And all those things. So hopefully, well, this is weird. I wonder how long they'll keep doing DC fandom, considering the response to an in-person event like San Diego Comic-Con, and seeing how that probably has a much more lasting effect on the consumers and stuff. So hopefully they've learned their lesson. They're like, you know what, next year maybe we show up, big time, or we make DC fandom a in-person event.
Yeah. Or I think they maybe turn it more into like, hey, this is the things we want to catch the most amount of people with, our biggest net.
Yeah.
That's Comic Con. And then the ones where we're like, the things that our hardcore fans would love to see or love to hear from, or some things that are maybe a little bit more behind the scenes, like that's what we'll put into fandom, because we know the hardcore fans are going to come to fandom. Like your average guy that's just like, oh, I'll go see the movies, he's probably not going to go to fandom.
And overall, kind of capping things off, like what was your favorite announcement?
I really liked having Daredevil Man like back into the fold. Like I know we were like, hey, yeah, he's gonna be here and like he's gonna probably show up in a couple things, but I didn't expect the amount of appearances he was gonna make. Charlie Cox as Daredevil is as much as Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man to me. So happy for him to be back and be playing a character that I love, and I really got into this character because of how good his acting was and how he portrayed in the show. So I'm incredibly happy for him to be back and be playing a big part of the street level crime in the MCU.
Yeah. And Kevin Feige kind of talked about, Daredevil and Spider-Man kind of spearheading that street level hero stuff. So hopefully we see more of
Exactly.
that. For me, it was that Wakanda Forever trailer.
Okay,
Really
yes,
like
it should have
that.
been the Wakanda Forever trailer. Yes, we
Yeah,
can't.
that
Yeah,
that was so good. And then watching it, I was kind of like, oh wow, like James Cameron must be pissed because everyone's gonna want to watch this underwater movie. so seeing Namor was cool. I've never really known much about the character, so the fact that they've kind of have their own interpretation of that, the fact they didn't shy away from the idea of T'Challa being dead, or it being a tribute to Chadwick. I think that is the way the music played. Like it was just
it was
such
cinematic.
yeah. So I mean that trailer, Ryan Coogler is such a talented filmmaker, and it just shows in that cut up trailer. So
I'll say
yeah,
this: the first Black Panther movie felt like a huge beacon of like, this is what everyone kind of wants, and this is like, it was like a representation and like voice for a lot of people. And like this next movie is going to top that in so many different ways and different categories and different aspects. And it's just going to mean so much to so many people that I can't even begin to think how important it's going to be to so many people, because I saw how it impacted my friends in the first one. And this one is just going to take it to a whole new level that, like, man, I'm ready to see all the emotional people break down on Jimmy Fallon or something, or just after seeing the movie and being like, wow, like this means so much to me, because that's what all these stories at the end of the day mean. They end up meaning so much to all of us and helping us like get through life and everything and being our representation of what we could be in the future. So it's really great to be able to see that instead of Avatar later this year.
Well, I want to see Avatar. I'm just
well, yeah, of course we're going to see Avatar, but I'm going to see Black Panther first.
Of course. And, you know, if you guys want to hear more or join this discussion, please follow us on social media. We have a pretty active Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Also, follow the podcast on where you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify. And now we have our YouTube channel, which is really good because you guys could join the discussion by commenting on the podcast, asking questions. Feel free to DM us and let us know if there's any topics you want to hear about. Or if we just got it wrong, you're like, hey, you're dumb. That doesn't make any sense. So please join the discussion there. And with that, bada boom.
Bada boom.